Hello and welcome back for another episode of Plead Your Case. This episode will be an all hoops edition as we cover March Madness and the NBA. The Sweet 16 is set for the men's and women's March Madness tournament. Today we will go over our reactions to the first two rounds of actions and expectations for the tournament moving forward. We'll also have a new mini segment this week with Haley Ryan, as she'll give you an inside look at our bracket challenge here, what we did at Waynesburg University. And everything will wrap up with the NBA talk as the playoffs are rapidly approaching. Who will be in and who is going to be out. So sit back and relax. You know what time it is. It's time to plead your case. The NCAA tournament this year has been nothing but madness so far. The second time ever a 16 seed defeated a number 1 seed. 15 seed Princeton is heading to the Sweet 16. And Elite 8 Arkansas knocked off number 1 seed Kansas. Now to introduce my panel, Jeremiah Miller, Alex Hughes. Guys, let's talk about the upsets. There was plenty of them in the first two rounds. Jeremiah, what was your biggest and most meaningful upset out of all of them?
Well, the one that I predicted was the 13 seed Furman Paladins upsetting the Virginia Cavaliers. Big upset. This was a game where the Paladins were down 10 plus stretches into that game. In fact, down 10, 5 minutes to go in that game, made a comeback. Of course, Kai Clark, the most wins ever in ACC history, made a boo-boo at the end of the game, tossing it. Furman got the steal, pushed it up court for the win. We all saw it, and that was the biggest upset, in my opinion, that I predicted. Now, the biggest upset of the weekend, obviously, was probably, in everybody's opinions, FDU taking down Zach Edey, the eventual player of the year, and the Purdue Boilermakers. That was probably the biggest one, but out of the ones I predicted, the Paladins getting past the Cavaliers was the biggest one in my eyes.
Yeah, definitely both the two that you hit on right there. With Virginia, I don't really know what to make of them anymore because this is like the third time in like the last 4 times they've been in that they've lost in big upsets in the first round. So I have a hard time picking Virginia like any bracket, going forward. But another upset that I looked at from the first round was the Arkansas-Kansas upset. I had Kansas going really far in my own bracket, as, again, they were number 1 in their section. So seeing Arkansas come in and upset them was really unexpected for me. But Kansas missed 7 free throws in that game. That's just not a way to win basketball games, especially in March Madness if you want to go far.
Yeah, and you guys covered most of them, but let's go real quick talk about the smart school, Princeton. I know a lot of people really didn't have them winning. A lot of people picked Arizona. We had our own Benicio DeFalco pick Arizona to win it all. And they're out in the first round. You have Princeton upsetting them, and then Princeton going on to upset Mizzou. Jeremiah, I know you had mentioned it a little bit last week on PYC. Thoughts on Princeton? Do they have a shot in this Sweet 16 tournament?
First off, let me make it clear. I apologize to Princeton men's basketball team for my actions last week. You guys are going to do great in whatever you do post-basketball, but you're making a heck of your name for yourself right now. As far as making it and what they can do the Sweet 16, why can't they beat Creighton? They already took down Arizona. They took down a Missouri team, who I know Missouri is a 7 seed, but probably one of the better three-point shooting teams in the tournament still remaining. So, yeah, who's to say Princeton can't win more? I mean, this is kind of what's left for their basketball careers. I mean, yeah, they're doing great right now, but they're probably not going to be playing professional. At least in the NBA, might have a chance overseas. Hey, they're letting it loose right now, and who's to say they don't take down the Blue Jays? We've seen Creighton struggle at times. They struggled a little bit against NC State. Now, they looked really good against Baylor, and that's a good Baylor's Bear team, a team that probably could have been a national title contender. So we'll see what the Tigers can do against the Blue Jays. There's definitely going to be a height difference, but there was against Arizona, and they took care of business there.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't be surprised at all if Princeton was able to pull out the win against Creighton. Again, like we mentioned, beating Arizona and Missouri, that's a huge thing for them, coming in as a 15 seed. And this was the first time since 1967 that Princeton has advanced to the Sweet 16. So again, it's March. Anything is possible. And I honestly wouldn't be shocked at all if Princeton is able to beat Creighton.
So with the upsets out of the way and more surely to come, we'll go to you, Jeremiah. What are your top 2 as we head into this week for the Sweet 16? What are your top 2 games this week?
So my first game, and I think this one could possibly be the game of the week, it's between the 3 seed out of the East region going to the Madison Square Garden, Kansas State taking on Michigan State. You always hear January, February, Izzo. Izzo's right back in the Sweet 16, his 15th of the last 25 years. going on against Kansas State, first-year head coach. They were a team that was predicted to finish last in the Big 12. Now they're here in the Sweet 16. They're going to MSG, and they got 2 All-Americans and Johnson. And now this could be easily, I think, the game of the weekend coming up. And then my other one I got, if you really like guard play, look out for the 1-5 matchup in the Midwest between the Houston Cougars, my national champions, and the Miami Hurricanes. Isaiah Wong, ACC Play of the Year, and Isaac Sasser and Jamal Shed for the Houston Cougars. That will be a great matchup, and as I said, I have Houston winning it all. So for my liking, I'd like to see Houston pull that one off.
Yeah, for my 2 games in this Sweet 16 round, number 1, I have number 9, FAU against number 4, Tennessee. Of course, FAU coming off first win against Memphis in the first round, and then beating the FDU, who upset Purdue in the first. And so they have a lot of momentum coming into this one, and they're going up against a Tennessee team that beat Duke. And again, Duke is a team that was really getting hot at the right time, and Tennessee just kind of really smothered them defensively. And so I think Tennessee's ultimately going to pull that one out because, again, FAU, they beat a 16 seed to get here, but again, that 16 seed beat a 1 seed. So it's going to be anyone's game. It's probably my game of the week for the Sweet 16. Then my second one, Arkansas and UConn. Again, I touched on Arkansas earlier with their win against number 1 Kansas, and I think Arkansas is a team that really could do some damage in this bracket. I think UConn has been pretty good, but they haven't been the most impressive team to me, so I think Arkansas could definitely make some noise, and I think this one will be another big win for them.
Well, I have 2 completely different ones. First, the UCLA Gonzaga, and I know when you hear Gonzaga, you think Drew Timme, and I don't know the exact number of years he's been there, but he's been there, I think we all can agree, longer than he should, going up against UCLA. And I want to mention Amari Bailey. No, he didn't, not just because he played with LeBron's son. Amari Bailey has put this UCLA team on his back. I have them winning that game. I would like for them to win that game. It would help my bracket out a lot, but I think that's going to be a really, really good game. You have Drew Timme down in the post, but then the guard play from UCLA. The other game, Bama, San Diego State. I have Alabama winning it all. I think the duo of Namari Burnett and Brandon Miller is just one of the best duos in college basketball. And arguably, I think Brandon Miller, other than Zach Edey, is one of the best players in college basketball. He can make his jump shots. He can drive to the lane. He can do it all. And he can do it on all levels, too. We've seen him do it throughout the regular season and now through the tournament. But I have Bama winning it all. Those are my top 2 games. That is it for our first segment on the desk. After the break, Haley Ryan will host a new mini segment here on Plead Your Case.
Hi everybody, I'm Haley Ryan and welcome to a new mini segment on Plead Your Case for the duration of the men's tournament. Every March Madness, millions of brackets are filled out, and this year a large handful of us here in the communication department decided to go head-to-head in a group bracket challenge. As you can see, this is our current top 10 in the group, with myself holding on to first place, Ethan Spazarski in second, Keegan Robbie in third, and one of our professors, Melinda Roeder, getting in on the competition. There's a lot of red winners on this screen between Houston, Gonzaga, and the Alabama Crimson Tide. But one that sticks out is Waynesburg alum Jack Hillgrove, tied for 7th place, having Texas taken it all. So those are our top brackets left. But of course here on Plead Your Case, we have to look at those that had a terrible mistake in their bracket. Starting off with Benicio DeFalco, the first to have their winner knocked out, picking Arizona to win it all. But I will cut him some slack. Even Jeremiah Miller said Princeton should have stuck to the books, and look at them now. Honorary comm major Mike Saliba picked Duke to win it all. He must not have gotten the update that Coach K wasn't the head coach anymore. Speaking of having Duke winning the championship, Carter Newcomb picked Kansas to win it all and beating Duke. Maybe he should stick to the golf course because he obviously doesn't know this type of ball. But we had to save the worst bracket for last. Now, he still does have his championship pick alive. But if you take a closer look at that Midwest region up there, yeah, you'll see it. Logan Arblaster forgot to fill out a whole region of his bracket. Also, not to mention his final score prediction between Arizona and UCLA is a 69-69 tie. Nice going, Logan. Maybe next March you will fill out the entire bracket and not pick the final score of the national championship game to be a tie. That is going to do it for me here on the mini segment. Make sure to come back next week for another update on our March Madness Bracket Challenge.
Have you ever been to the Everly Library? If not, you should, because it's great. They have books of all different genres: history, biography, fiction. Try The Evolution of Life, Life of Pi, or Jurassic Park. So what if books aren't your thing? Try movies like Frozen, or TV shows like Lost. Books and DVDs aren't the only thing though. Take a trip to the second floor. Welcome to the Writing Center. These tutors will tell you everything you need to know about writing a paper, and they'll help revise your essays. Now let's head back down. Behold, the Knox Learning Center. Need to print something out 5 minutes before your next class because you procrastinated? No problem. You can also print off pictures of dogs. Because, well, you can. So grab your homework, laptop, and textbook, and study diligently. Bring your lunch too. Actually, you can't. That's illegal. Now you know the Everly Library. Stop by anytime. Seriously, it's open all week.
The men's tournament takes all the spotlight in March, but there is a women's tournament and it has had quite a few upsets of its own. 12 seed FGCU defeating number 5 seed Washington State in the round of 64, and in the round of 32, Ole Miss had a huge upset over number 1 seed Stanford. Back to the guys on the desk. Guys, I mentioned, there was a lot of upsets in the men's bracket, but there's also a few. We had the 12 seed Toledo beat the 5 seed Iowa State, FGCU beat Washington State, and then of course the Ole Miss over Stanford. Which one of those is the biggest to you guys?
Well, Ole Miss over Stanford's one for sure. I mean, Stanford has made 15 consecutive Sweet 16s heading into this year, looking to make it 16. Not the case. Ole Miss, the running Rebels, go into Stanford. It's a little different if you don't know, like the men's where you go to a pod. Whoever the highest seed is host that weekend. So this was a home game for Stanford. And Ole Miss, they were packing their bags early for Seattle, Washington. They took care of business against the Stanford Cardinal, and the running Rebels are now heading to Seattle, Washington for the region. And also another upset to look at, Indiana, the number 1 seed out of the Greenville region, got taken down by Miami, Florida. Of course, the TikTok twins are a big part of that. Don't know their names. I just know they're on TikTok. But the one twin, I know she had 2 free throws down the stretch to give the Hurricanes the win in that one. So that was another big upset. So just like the men's tournament, 2 number 1 seeds go down in the women's first weekend.
Yeah, for me, I look at for the biggest upset here, the Princeton and NC State game. Again, Princeton, we talked about the men's team and what they've done, but the women's team has been pretty good as well. They didn't make it to the Sweet 16. They would lose in the second round, but still, they beat an NC State team 64-63, having Stone and Chen each combined for 22 points, along with Stone hitting the game-winning 3. But the thing that stood out to me the most in this win for Princeton was the fact that they held NC State without a score for the final 5 minutes and 43 seconds of the game. And I don't care what level of basketball it is, that is very impressive to be able to do that from a defensive standpoint. And Princeton had to do that to get that win, and it was very impressive for them.
I think one of my favorite and biggest upsets of the week was the FGCU beating the number 5 seed Washington State. I only say that my sister goes to FGCU. She doesn't follow basketball. I do, though, so it's kind of cool to watch. Someone who I know they go to that school, they get the upset. She said it was a great weekend there. They ended up losing in the next round to Villanova, but nonetheless, we'll go on to the Sweet 16 round. Jeremiah, 2 big games you see in this women's bracket this week.
Yeah, the first one is the heavy favorites, South Carolina Gamecocks going against UCLA, and this one, South Carolina. Now, the reason I'm looking at this is because South Carolina has all of the country basically looking at them. 80% of the brackets basically picked the Gamecocks, so a lot of pressure on them. It's going to be basically a home game as they're in Greenville, South Carolina, so not that far a trip from Columbia, South Carolina, where the University of South Carolina is located at. Another one, Colorado versus Iowa. Iowa has Caitlin Clark. If you haven't heard about her, she's basically the Russell Westbrook of college basketball. She's a triple-double threat the minute she steps on the floor. She's also in shooting range as soon as she steps foot on the floor. She's an incredible player. She's probably going to be the first overall pick coming up in the WNBA. Is this her March moment to deliver the Hawkeyes a championship? Time will tell. They take on the Buffaloes coming up this weekend.
Yeah, for me, one of the ones that I look at the most, I think it's going to be the best game. I see Virginia Tech against Tennessee. It's a 1-4 matchup, and these are two teams who have really just been dominating in their game so far this season. Virginia Tech has had big wins, and Tennessee has beat both their opponents by over 40 points in both games. So that's going to be a really big one between two heavy hitters there. Again, I think it could go either way, but in women's basketball here in their tournament, we see a lot of the higher seeds advancing, and that brings me to the other game, which is number 9 Miami against number 4 Villanova. And Miami was actually the lowest remaining seed in their bracket, left at number 9, which again, it's a stark difference from what we see in the men's bracket with a 15 seed at Princeton. So that's going to be a big one if Miami can break that trend and kind of be one of the lower seeds to advance, which again, not something we've seen a lot of as the tournament advances for the women's side.
I have 3 games here. 2 main ones. Jeremiah pretty much covered it perfectly, talking on the Iowa side of things. When Caitlin Clark is on the floor, Iowa is one of the best college basketball teams, and they are very hard to beat. She just does it all. But going on to other games, Ohio State against UConn, I'm from Ohio. I'm a big Ohio State guy. The men's did not make it this year. They had a good run in the Big Ten championship, not able to make it out of there. But for the women's to go through the bracket, they beat North Carolina yesterday, and now they go against a really good UConn team with Paige Buckers leading the charge for UConn coming off that the ACL tear. It's a good UConn team, but this is an OSU team that has struggled in the regular season but has played outstanding in the tournament. So look for that to be a good one. And going over to the other game, Ole Miss Louisville. Ole Miss got their upset, but Haley Van Leith is on Louisville, and she is just as good as Caitlin Clark. She's not up there with her, but she will be a second or third pick in the WNBA draft. Haley Van Leith can do it all for Louisville, and when she's on the floor, they're just as dangerous as Iowa. With that being said, that is it for our second segment here on Plead Your Case. When we come back, we will turn it over to the pros and discuss the current NBA playoff picture. Don't go anywhere.
You're watching WCTV, where we aim to bring you the best local coverage of what you care about most. Everything from local businesses to hometown sports and the latest weather. We're keeping up to date with what you need to know about issues that affect our campus and our community. We're telling the stories that matter, celebrating our past, our future, and our potential. So tune in for all the latest buzz right here on WCTV Channel 14, Waynesburg.
3 teams have already locked up a playoff spot, with teams now just having 10 to 12 games left to get into the postseason. The Milwaukee Bucks, the Boston Celtics, and the Denver Nuggets have all each clinched their respective divisions. Turning it over to Jeremiah, are one of these teams the team to beat, or do you have another team coming out of the East and West in their top groups?
So from the Western Conference, I do have the top dog right now, and that's the Denver Nuggets, led by 2-time reigning MVP Nikola Jokic. And you could argue he's going to get his 3rd in a row, which that would put him in unprecedented company. The only guy I can think of that won 3 MVPs in a row was Larry Bird. I'm sure there's another one possibly somewhere. Off the top of my head, Bird won 3 in a row in the 80s. So those are the top dogs, in my opinion, that are going to come out of the West. Now, in the East, they're not right now in first, but a team I really like out of the East is the Boston Celtics, the reigning Eastern Conference champions. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Al Horford, the rest of the crew. The Celtics are a team that they've been there before, so they kind of got their feet wet on what a championship atmosphere looks like. It's been 15 years since the Celtics have brought home a championship. I think that's one of the longest droughts. The longest drought since the 80s to that 2008 championship. So they're getting back in that unprecedented territory. So it's been a long time for the C-Man. So I think that they're going to come out of the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I kind of have it flipped. I have the top dog in the East being that Milwaukee Bucks team. Giannis Antetokounmpo, as long as he is on that team, they are a force to be reckoned with. We've seen them dominate in the playoffs time and time again. Of course, last year they fell just short to the Boston Celtics. But again, as long as they have Giannis on that team, they're always going to be a contender. Again, he's another 2-time MVP just like Jokic. And they have Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, and that's just a team that's going to do great things in the playoffs like they always do. Then on the West side, I have the Memphis Grizzlies. They've been kind of up and down. They've had a lot of issues that aren't really on the court problems. Brandon Clark had an injury and ended his season, and of course the bigger story has been everything to do with Ja Morant. But if they can get Morant back, that's going to be huge for them. He can return to the bench just the other night, and they're hopeful that he can return to play Wednesday against the Rockets. So if they can get Ja Morant back, that's going to be huge for the Grizzlies, and I think they're going to be a really tough team to beat in the West.
Well, going out of the East, I'm from Cleveland, guys, so I'm going to have to go with it. But I think Cleveland is legit this year. They're the 4th seed. They're behind Philly, Boston, and Milwaukee. But they were at the 2 seed for a very, very good portion of the season. And with this addition of Donovan Mitchell, they have just been outstanding. I mean, everyone expected them to play at this level, but they weren't supposed to be this good. They were supposed to be a 5 or 6 seed. Then, Kyrie and KD, they get traded over to the West. But bringing in Donovan Mitchell has just brought this team together. You had last year, we should have made the playoffs. We choke in the play-in tournament to Trae Young, and the Cavs were up about 20. And they choked that lead. But now you bring in one of the best shooting guards in the league at the moment right now in Donovan Mitchell. You have Darius Garland, an upcoming star, Evan Mobley, an upcoming star, and then you put in the veteran Jared Allen. This is just a very, very young team that's going to be in the playoff run and maybe a finals run for a very long time. There's no LeBron, but this team is just as dangerous with that starting 5 of Garland, Mitchell, Mobley, and Allen. And the West side, I'll say this right now, not to bang on Alex, but I cannot stand the Memphis Grizzlies. I don't think they're good. I don't know how they made it to the 2nd seed. Ja Morant is a clown. But with that being said, I love the Sacramento Kings. Last year, they were terrible. They really didn't make too many changes this year. They added Sabonis late in the year last year, but this year, he has just turned into a different animal. He's almost averaging a triple-double. He averages 20 points a game, 8 rebounds, and 7 assists. And you rarely see the 7 assists coming from a center except for Nikola Vucevic or Nikola Jokic. But the Kings are very good. They're at the 3 seed. They weren't supposed to be this good. Like I said last year, they were terrible. But out of nowhere, just storming through this West, and a very tight West. With that being said, who are your guys' 2 teams, one from the East, one from the West, to make the finals, and who do you think is going to win it all? We'll start with you, Jeremiah.
Oh, the 2 teams I just mentioned, the Nuggets and the Celtics. I think the Celtics for sure coming back out of the East. I know the East is tough, but team that's been there, I just think they'll have that drive, that extra drive coming in to when they get to the playoffs. And then the Nuggets, I think this is the time for Nikola Jokic. He's been 2-time MVP. That is a regular season award. I think it's time to get it done in the playoffs. I understand he actually has a pretty decent team around him for once, and I think this team's poised to go on a playoff run. Nuggets, they have a rich history, but that rich history doesn't contain a championship. They've got great players from Mutombo to Carmelo, Chauncey Billups, and now Nikola Jokic, arguably the best Denver Nugget ever. It's time to step it up, and I think they do this year, and I think they take them past the Western Conference, and I think they'll meet up with the Boston Celtics in the NBA Finals.
Yeah, I have to stick with my team in the East, Milwaukee Bucks. Again, Giannis Antetokounmpo has already taken his team to the finals and won. And as far as the West, I have the Golden State Warriors making it back to the finals. This is a team that right now is sitting at 37 and 36, but you can never count out a team led by Steph Curry, coached by Steve Kerr. And of course, they got Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Jordan Poole. This is a great team, and even though it has been an up and down season for them, nobody has more playoff experience than this team, especially put together as a unit, because they've been there time and time again. And I know people are kind of sick of seeing the Golden State Warriors there, but I think they're going to get hot at the right time. I think they're going to make a run, and I think they're going to be in the finals with the Milwaukee Bucks when it's all said and done.
As much as I'd like Cleveland to be in the finals, guys, I just don't think it's this year, maybe in a year or two. Give me Philly. I was not high on them at the start of the season, but Joel Embiid over the last 10 games, averaging 35, 8, and 7. I mean, he has just come out of nowhere. Obviously, the past 2 years, he's been in the MVP discussion with Jokic. I think he's, as much as I'd love to see a three-peat from Jokic, I think Embiid has overtaken that. I believe he's at, right now, the polls in the first position. So give me Philly in that spot. And I'm going to be generic, but with the Phoenix Suns acquiring Kevin Durant, now having 2 of the best pure scorers in the league right now with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, led by a veteran in CP3. I know he's got no rings yet, but CP3 is very good in the playoffs despite having no rings. And then you add DeAndre Ayton, who's not the best center, but is a center that will get you your rebounds. He doesn't have to score much now with the addition of KD. The Phoenix Suns, all healthy in the playoffs, can make a huge run. Before we end, we'll go real quickly. Any sleeper teams from the East and West, Jeremiah?
Yeah, out of the West, the Dallas Mavericks. Once this team gets healthy, gets Luka getting back to Luka form, has Kyrie Irving now to dish him out the ball, I really think that the Dallas Mavericks can make a run out of the West. And for the East, Kind of a surprise team. I have the Atlanta Hawks. This is a team that just a few years ago made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. I think Trae Young can get things back together. John Collins as well to step up. And, just a mix of the depth that the Hawks have. You don't see it by their record, but the Hawks are one of the deeper teams in the Eastern Conference. And look out for the Hawks to maybe go out and make a run in the Eastern Conference.
For me, I obviously have from the West the Golden State Warriors that I think will again make it to the finals again. They've had an up and down season, but I think they're on the up and up and they're going to finish the season strong. And then in the East, I have my own Miami Heat team. I think this is a team that is right around the middle of the pack right now, but I think they're going to get, again, really hot at the right time. Jimmy Butler has been playing so great since the All-Star break. If he can just get a little help from Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, Victor Oladipo, and even if they can get anything out of Kyle Lowry, since he's just been horrendous since coming to the Heat from the Raptors, that this could be a team that can be dangerous in the playoffs, as they like to say, dangerously looming down in Miami, because, again, this is a team that hasn't had the best season this season, but they can definitely turn it around, and they've made noise in the playoffs before, and I think they could do it again.
From the East side, I have the Knicks side, Julius Randle, and then the addition of Jalen Brunson, who had a great year with the Mavs last year. Those two together have been playing well. Just last night, Julius Randle dropped 57 points against the Timberwolves, and he's just been having a great run. They're the 5 seed right now currently. They should make the playoffs. They're not the most stacked team in the East, but they're a team that'll give you trouble. If Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle do their thing every night on those 7-game series, the Knicks will give you trouble. On to the West side of things, I got to mention Minnesota. I'm rooting for them. They're my West team. It's been a struggle over the past 2 years. Last year, losing in a heartbreaker Game 6 against Memphis. And I don't mean to be corny, but watch out for the Lakers. I know LeBron, blah, 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 but the chemistry is now there. After the trade deadline, they have been much better. D'Angelo Russell has been playing well. Anthony Davis has been playing well. We'll knock on wood that he doesn't get injured. We know his ankles are about as good as Logan Lepiscopo's in the back. But with that being said, the Lakers are a very, very dangerous team with LeBron healthy, Anthony Davis healthy. You have Malik Beasley and a three-point shooter. Austin Reeves, who's come out of nowhere and has earned himself a $50 million contract for next year. The Lakers are going to be a very good team. With that being said, for myself, Jeremiah Miller, Alex Hughes, that is going to do it for this episode of Plead Your Case. Thank you for watching, and make sure to come back every Wednesday morning at 8 for a new episode of WCTV's only national sports debate show.
This has been a production of Waynesburg Community Television.